Buenos días, clase. Or buenas tardes. Not sure what time you're seeing this. ¿Qué le falta? Todos. Triste. Hopefully you're doing well. So here we go, adding to our basics video library for those of you wanting to refresh your memory on that foundation that you built in Spanish 1. And for some of you, maybe actually getting it taught to you for the first time. Good for my Spanish 2s, Spanish 3s to do review. Don't forget, need to remember all this good stuff. So for today's lesson, we're going to do a review and for some, learn how to conjugate in the present tense. All right. We're going to start with an AR verb and then we're going to move on to ER and IR verbs. And of course, I always like to try and have a silly song that reinforces the material. As you know, you can be in the mall and be walking around and you haven't heard a song in years. And then all of a sudden you hear it playing and you know the words. So if we can set what you just learned to music, it really does help it sink into that long-term memory. Just don't forget to play the song, sing along if you can, and it'll help you remember. All right, so for today, let's take a look. We spoke about the verb chart. Remember that was really, really important, where we spoke about how all verbs need to go into a verb chart, right? So we said it's really important to remember that this is the the yo form, I. This is to you. This is ella and usted, he, she, right? And Mr. and Mrs. This is nosotras, nosotros, we. And then this is ellos, ellas, and ustedes. So really, really important. You need to make sure you know the verb chart so that you can be successful. All right. So let's begin with our AR verbs. So I'm going to make, actually I can use this size. All right. So for our AR verbs, the yo form, o, as, a, amos, and an. Okay, so what are these? What am I even doing? All right, these are the endings for an AR verb in the present tense. So what exactly does this mean? In Spanish, verbs end in 3 different endings. They either end in AR, ER, or IR. So these 3 endings, you'll sometimes have to learn different endings for each one. All right. So AR, present tense, endings are o, as, a, amos, and an. Again, what does that even mean? Let's take a nice simple verb like hablar. It's actually my favorite verb to use when I am doing an example. Hablar means to talk, okay? So we have hablar. The way you conjugate a regular verb, you drop the last 2 letters. So if it's an AR verb, I'm dropping the last 2 letters. So this right here, the full unconjugated verb is called the infinitive. When you drop the last 2 letters, you're now left with a stem. So this is now the stem. Later, we'll be talking about stem changing verbs. So it's important to learn the vocabulary. So this is an infinitive. This is now the stem. So obviously, later, stem changing verbs would have a change happen here. All right, but not now. All right, so AR present tense. So we have hablar. Now, if you want it to be in the yo form, you know that the yo form ends in o, and therefore yo hablo. All right. So what about if I want it to be in the to form? So again, I've got my stem. What would it be for the to form? So take a look. We drop off the AR. It's AS. So therefore you have tú hablas. Nice and easy, right? So take a guess. What would the LAN usted form be? If you guessed habla, then you're correct. So él habla, ella habla, usted habla. Now if you come up to the other part of the chart, so nosotros, what would it be? So nosotros, it would be H-A-B-L, just like here. We took off the A-R, and then you're going to add the amos. Nosotros hablamos. Then we don't use the vosotros. And then we have the ellos, ellas, ustedes. Again, we've got our stem. And then we have the hablan. So now we have yo hablo, tú hablas, él habla, nosotros hablamos, and ellos hablan. Really easy, right? That's why this is so important. Notice we just wrote it in a verb chart style. Oops. Kind of messy, but I think you can see what we're doing. All right. So there's our verb chart style. So o, as, a, amos, and an. There it is. There's your present tense. So this is regular present tense for an AR verb. All right. So your basics. This is where you would start Spanish 1 probably in the first month after you conjugate two irregular verbs, which I'll deal with at another time. But right now, just wanted to get you to the standard. All right. Now let's talk about how to conjugate present tense ER and IR. So similar concept of what we had. So let's create our chart here. All right. So ER and IR, we've got a little trick here with this one that we've got to watch out for. So with ER and IR verbs, you still have an O, but we just changed to an E. And if the verb ends in IR, so this is our present tense. And we're talking about our ending verbs. So ER and IR end the same way, except here. This is what you've got to watch out for. In the nosotros, nosotras form, the we form, if it's an IR verb, it's going to be emos. And if it's an ER verb, it's going to be emos. So let's look at some examples. My favorite ER verb to use is comer, to eat. So using our vocabulary, this is the infinitive, the unconjugated form. Then, when we take off the last two letters, now we're left with the stem. From here, I have so many possibilities, right? The yo form, right? So what do we have? So if we put our chart together, como, comes, come, comemos, comen. So notice, pretty simple, very straightforward. O, es, e, hemos, and en. There are your verbs. My favorite IR verb to use is vivir. So again, that's our infinitive, vivir. Then I take off the IR, left with the stem. Vivir is vivo, vives, vive, vivimos. I was trying to emphasize it, almost threw myself off. Okay, and viven. All right, again, note your chart. It's here. That's why you have to know that you've got the yo form in that first box, to form, ella, usted, nosotros, ellos, ellas, ustedes. And again, here's your o, s, e, imos, and n. That's what you've got to watch out for. So they share the same conjugations. You just have to watch out if it's an IR verb. I hope this help you walk through some of the basics for present tense verb conjugation. So again, remember your vocab. If it's not conjugated, it's in the infinitive. This gets to be more important, understanding the vocabulary, because we have verbs that work with the full infinitive later, and as well as a verb conjugation, which is the simple future, which uses the full infinitive. So we need to make sure we're using the right vocabulary. And then here we have our stem, and then we add the os, e, amos, n, or imos, n, depending on what we're working with. So in closing, I have a cheesy song for you. Hopefully it gets stuck in your head and you sing it multiple times, and it will really, really help you reinforce the material. And plus, I hope you have fun with it. Okay, clase, I hope you're doing well, and goodbye for now. Adios.
Conjugating verbs. Conjugating verbs. If you want to conjugate in Spanish, then you'll have to listen. It's actually quite simple, plus this song will have you whistling. First you must decide which set of endings you'll be needing. You'll learn it so fast you may get a ticket for speeding. There's 3 kinds of verbs in Spanish that we will be changing. A-R, E-R, I-R, yeah that's it, I'm not pretending. Drop the infinitive ending, we will no longer need it. Add the new ending to tell us who's the one that did it. Conjugating, it's pretty easy. Drop the A, hey, keep it stay. Conjugating, it's super simple. Make the A, hey, with it to stay. Do it right, we'll choose a order, so regret on the ending. Vamos a. Vamos a. Vamos a. Vamos a. Hey, conjugated. Vamos a. Hey, conjugated. I hope you start to get this and see that it's very easy. I know the lyrics aren't the best, but hope they're not too cheesy. Now you know the AR ends and can change verbs like cantar. Canto, cantas, canta, cantamos, and ellos cantan. Now let's move on to other verbs that end in ER. I'll show you these endings if you'll please lend me your ear. Drop the infinitive ending and write the stem right here. After the next chorus, it will all be very clear. Conjugating, it's pretty easy. Drop the A, and keep the stem. Conjugating, it's super simple. Make the A, with the first name. Do it right, we'll choose you every time, whatever new ending. Oh, it's Emerson. 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 Hey, conjugated. Oh, it's Emerson. Hey, conjugated. conjugated. Bring the beat down now, cause I will show you how. Verbs that end in IR have the easiest endings, wow. I'll give the endings now, and then I'll tell you shall. If you learned all these endings, stand up and take a bow. Imosen. Hey, conjugated. Imosen. Hey, conjugated. Let's conjugate those verbs.